Michael Jordan was never one to shy away from competition, but few could have predicted that a quiet evening at Westwood Lanes would turn into a night of sports history. It all started as a casual visit, a simple getaway from the buzz of basketball, where Jordan, now long retired from the NBA, decided to unwind with a few close friends. Dressed in a sleek black tracksuit and a pair of his signature Air Jordans, he stepped into the alley with the same confidence he carried on the basketball court, immediately drawing attention from onlookers. Whispers rippled through the venue as people nudged each other, disbelief spreading like wildfire. Was that really Michael Jordan, the six-time NBA champion, the global icon, just casually walking into a local bowling alley? Some scrambled for their phones, capturing the moment as he walked past rows of lanes, his presence commanding attention even without trying. A few bowlers abandoned their games entirely, mesmerized by the sheer improbability of seeing his airness in such an unexpected place. "No way, that's really him," someone muttered, while others stared in awe, wondering what had brought the legend to their little corner of the world. As Jordan approached the counter, the alley's manager, a lifelong basketball fan named Chuck Daniels, nearly fumbled his clipboard in excitement. "Welcome to Westwood Lanes, Mr. Jordan. What brings you here tonight?" Chuck asked, struggling to suppress his grin. Jordan chuckled, glancing around at the polished lanes before responding in that deep, unmistakable voice. "Just here to have some fun, man. I heard this was the spot." The room tensed as more people gathered around, eager to see what Jordan had planned. It wasn't every day that a legend decided to bowl in their neighborhood alley. A young kid, barely 12 years old, nervously approached, clutching a basketball. "Mr. Jordan, can you sign this?" he asked, his voice trembling. Jordan smiled, taking the ball and scribbling his signature before playfully ruffling the kid's hair. The crowd swelled, their admiration growing, but Jordan remained unfazed, his focus shifting to the lanes before him. Finding an open spot, he scanned the selection of bowling balls, testing their weight in his hands. The feeling was foreign, nothing like gripping a basketball, but there was something oddly intriguing about it. "Haven't done this in a while," he murmured to himself. His longtime friend and former teammate, Charles Oakley, who had accompanied him, smirked. "Yeah, and I bet you think you're about to be the Michael Jordan of bowling too, huh?" The comment drew laughter from those nearby, but Jordan simply grinned. He was used to the expectations, used to being great at anything he touched. But this was different. Despite his fame, he blended into the environment, standing at the edge of the lane with a quiet intensity. The alley's regulars, many of whom had been bowling for years, studied his form, curious to see how he'd fare in a sport vastly different from basketball. His hands, which had once gripped championship-winning shots, now held a 15-pound ball, and for the first time in a long time, he wasn't the immediate favorite. Across the room, a group of seasoned bowlers observed him carefully, whispering amongst themselves. One of them, a burly man named Eddie "Strike King" Wilson, a local legend known for his near-perfect bowling average, smirked. "Let's see if Air Jordan's got any air under that ball," he quipped, eliciting chuckles from his companions. Jordan caught wind of the comment but said nothing, simply stepping forward and rolling his first ball down the lane. The sound of the ball striking the pins was loud but not perfect, a 7-pin spare left standing. A murmur spread through the crowd. He was good, but not exceptional, not yet. "Not bad for a first shot, huh?" Jordan joked, turning to Oakley. A few chuckles echoed, but the competitive fire in Jordan's eyes was unmistakable. He wasn't just here to play around, he was here to win. And whether he had intended to or not, the night had just taken an unexpected turn. The murmurs, the whispers, the challenges floating through the air, all of it fueled the same relentless drive that had made him an icon in basketball. Eddie, sensing an opportunity, leaned forward with a smirk. "You ever bowled a 300 before?" he asked, his voice dripping with friendly mockery. Jordan shook his head. "Nope. Never needed to." The response was casual, but there was an unmistakable undertone to it, the same kind of tone he'd used countless times before, right before delivering something historic. Eddie laughed. "Well, this ain't basketball, MJ. Takes more than confidence to go perfect in bowling." Jordan simply nodded, rolling his next ball with a smoother motion, this time picking up the spare with ease. The precision in his movements, the way he was already adjusting, those who had seen him play knew exactly what this meant. A hush fell over the crowd as they watched him roll again, this time landing his first strike. The sound of 10 pins crashing against the wood echoed through the alley, and a few people clapped in excitement. Jordon gave a small smirk, shaking his head as if he had just figured something out. That was the moment everything changed. What started as a casual visit had now become something more. The alley's regulars knew it, the workers knew it, and Eddie knew it. Michael Jordon was about to turn this into a competition. And when Michael Jordon competes, history is never far behind. The buzz inside Westwood Lanes had escalated from murmurs of disbelief to full-blown excitement. Michael Jordon wasn't just rolling a few frames for fun, he was starting to take things seriously. People repositioned themselves, some abandoning their own games to get a better view, while others pulled out their phones, ready to capture whatever history was about to unfold. The smell of oil on the polished wooden lanes mixed with the faint aroma of buttered popcorn and soda fizzing from the vending machines. The once quiet alley now buzzed with anticipation, and Jordon, ever the competitor, could feel the energy shift around him. He picked up another ball, rolling it in his hands like he was studying its weight and balance. "All right, let's see what I can do," he muttered, stepping up to the lane again. But things didn't go as smoothly as he had hoped. His next shot curved just a little too early, missing the perfect pocket, leaving the 4-6-7-10 split, the dreaded Big Four, standing on the lane. The crowd let out a collective ooh-hoo, the type of reaction you'd hear after a missed game-winning shot in the NBA. Jordon stood there for a moment, hands on his hips, analyzing his mistake. He was used to perfecting things quickly, but bowling wasn't basketball. There was no air control, no footwork advantage, no vertical leap to bail him out. This was precision. This was physics. This was frustrating. Eddie, strike king, Wilson let out a hearty chuckle from the sidelines. "Happens to the best of us, big guy. Maybe stick to hoops," he teased, his smirk widening as the crowd laughed. Jordon turned his head slightly, fixing Eddie with that familiar look, the same laser-focused stare he had given his opponents in the NBA when they dared to talk trash. "You sure you want to say that?" Jordon said, arching an eyebrow. The room tensed for a moment, waiting to see what would happen next. Oakley, knowing exactly what that look meant, shook his head with a chuckle. "Man, you done messed up now," he whispered under his breath. Jordon grabbed another ball, determined to convert the impossible split. He took a deep breath, exhaling slowly before rolling it down the lane with careful precision. The ball shot forward, gliding smoothly before curving toward the left pin cluster, clipping the 4-pin perfectly, which ricocheted off the sideboard and nearly took down the remaining 2. Clink clunk. The crowd gasped. It was close, so close, but the 10 pins still stood. Jordon sighed, shaking his head before cracking a grin. "Guess I gotta work on my spare game." The audience chuckled, but he wasn't laughing on the inside. He wasn't there just to play. Now, he wanted to dominate. Eddie, still watching from his perch, crossed his arms. "Told you, MJ, this ain't easy. Takes years to master this sport." Jordon nodded slightly, rolling another ball in his hands as if getting familiar with it. "Yeah," he said, staring at the pins. "But I've never needed years to master anything." The fire was lit. For the next 30 minutes, Jordon bowled frame after frame, making adjustments with every roll. He studied how the ball moved, how the oil patterns affected his shot, how the professionals positioned their hands and wrists at release. He was missing more than he was hitting, but something was changing. His posture, his follow-through, the way he adjusted without hesitation. Each shot became cleaner, smoother, more refined. The learning curve was shrinking right before everyone's eyes. Spectators whispered to each other, "Dude, he's getting better by the second. Look at the spin on that one, it's way different from before. He's locking in, man. I think he's about to go off." It wasn't just casual fun anymore. Michael Jordon was problem-solving. By the time he reached his next full game, he had already eliminated most of his early mistakes. He started hitting consistent strikes, and the crowd's reaction began shifting from amusement to awe. The smoothness of his release, the way the ball hugged the perfect curve down the lane, it was starting to look like he had been doing this for years. The strikes became frequent, each one sending a ripple of cheers through the growing audience. Even Eddie had gone from confident smirks to watching carefully, arms crossed, nodding slightly as if he was seeing something impossible happen right in front of him. Then, with a swift motion, Jordon rolled another perfect shot. Boom. 10 pins down. The alley erupted. Oakley whistled, shaking his head. Man, I knew it. He figured it out. A woman in the crowd turned to her friend. If he keeps going like this, she whispered, the end of her sentence left unfinished. Because everyone already knew what she was thinking. Was Jordon about to do the impossible? Jordon sat down, taking a sip of water, watching the scoreboard. His last 6 frames had been strikes. The crowd buzzed as they realized he was putting something special together. But Jordon? He just sat there, calm as ever. Eddie finally broke the silence. All right, Jordon. You got my attention. The atmosphere had changed. This was no longer a retired basketball player just having fun. Michael Jordan was locked in. And everyone in the building could feel what was coming next. The energy in Westwood Lanes had shifted. The casual, laid-back atmosphere had been replaced with a buzz of anticipation, as if everyone knew something special was about to unfold. The once skeptical crowd had now gathered in clusters, some standing on chairs just to get a better view. Even the alley employees, who had seen countless games played here, were peeking over the counter, drawn in by the sheer spectacle of Michael Jordan transforming before their eyes. But for Eddie Strike King Wilson, the reigning king of Westwood Lanes, this wasn't entertainment, it was a challenge. Eddie had been a competitive bowler for over 20 years. He had rolled more perfect 300 games than he could count, held local championship titles, and was known for his swagger in the alley. He had laughed when Jordon walked in, thinking the basketball legend was just another celebrity dabbling in a sport he didn't understand. But now Eddie could feel something deep in his gut. That competitive aura, that intensity radiating off Jordon, it was undeniable. Michael wasn't just playing anymore. He was here to win. Eddie leaned forward in his seat, rolling a ball between his hands before finally standing up. The smirk was still on his face, but there was something else now, respect, maybe even a little unease. All right, MJ. You're getting the hang of it. But if you really want to prove yourself, how about you go against the best? The alley fell silent. Jordon, who had been adjusting his wrist position, turned his head slightly, raising an eyebrow. You mean you? Eddie chuckled. Damn right I mean me. He held up his custom-made bowling ball, the words, Strike King, engraved in gold lettering. You think you can hang? Let's see if that competitive fire of yours burns as hot in the lanes as it did on the court. A low "oh" spread through the crowd. The challenge had been officially laid down. Jordon exhaled slowly, rubbing his chin, then glanced at Oakley. What you think, Oak? Oakley laughed, shaking his head. Man, you already made up your mind. Just say yes. Jordon grinned before turning back to Eddie. All right, I'll play you. He stepped closer, his eyes locked onto Eddie's. But I don't just play. I win. The crowd lost it. Phones were whipped out. Bets started flying around. Employees quickly set up the scoreboard. What started as a casual evening had just turned into an event. Even people outside the bowling alley had started filtering in, drawn by the noise and rumors spreading across the street. Michael Jordan is about to go head-to-head with Eddie Wilson in a bowling match. The rules were simple. 1 full game. No do-overs, no handicaps. Best score wins. As the lane reset and the pins were set in place, Jordon grabbed a fresh ball, rolling it in his fingers. He took a deep breath, his mind switching into game mode. The pressure, the crowd, the intensity, this was his natural habitat. Eddie went first. With a practiced stance, he stepped up, took 3 smooth steps, and sent his ball gliding down the lane like a missile locking onto its target. The ball curved with perfection, slicing through the pocket at just the right angle. Strike. The crowd clapped, some even cheering. Eddie turned back to Jordon, shrugging. That's one. Jordon smirked, stepped up, and took his shot. Boom. Strike. The crowd roared. Frame after frame, the two went back and forth, delivering strike after strike, neither flinching, neither folding under the pressure. Jordon's progression was stunning. His shots looked cleaner, smoother, more refined than anyone could have imagined. By frame 6, they were still dead even. Eddie couldn't believe it. Jordon wasn't just competing, he was keeping pace with a professional. "Ain't no way," he muttered under his breath, wiping sweat from his brow. Jordon, unfazed, adjusted his wrist, studying the lane as if it were a basketball court before launching another flawless strike. Frame 7. Frame 8. Frame 9. Still perfect. The crowd was unhinged. People were screaming, high-fiving, losing their minds as the realization started to sink in. Jordon wasn't just competing. He was on pace for a perfect game. Eddie, rattled for the first time in years, stepped up for his next shot. He wiped his hands, took a deep breath, and rolled. The ball curved too much. One pin stood. The crowd gasped. Eddie closed his eyes, exhaling. It was over. He had lost the chance at a perfect 300. Jordon, however, still had 3 frames left, and he was flawless. The alley was shaking. Whispers spread through the crowd. If he strikes out, he'll roll a 300. A perfect game. Oakley clapped his hands together. "Oh, it's over. I already know how this ends." Jordon grabbed his ball, stepping onto the approach. The cameras flashed, the room was dead silent, and all eyes were locked onto the legend. Could he do it? Could Michael Jordon achieve the impossible? Again. The energy inside Westwood Lanes had reached an unprecedented fever pitch. People weren't just watching a casual game anymore. They were witnessing a moment of history unfold in real time. The air was thick with tension, every whisper, every breath held in suspense as Michael Jordon stepped up to the approach. He wasn't just winning. He was on the verge of something legendary. The scoreboard glowed bright above the lanes. Jordon, 270, with 3 shots left. Eddie, 279, his final score. Eddie had bowled near perfection, but that one single missed pin in frame 9 had cost him his shot at a 300. Now, only one man remained standing on the edge of glory. Michael Jordon, his airness, the GOAT, had 3 shots left. 3 more perfect throws, and he would complete a perfect game. The bowling alley had never been this loud and this quiet at the same time. "Ain't no way he does this," someone muttered, almost as if saying it out loud would prevent it from happening. But others knew better. "You don't doubt MJ. You never doubt MJ." Jordon grabbed his ball, rolling it between his fingers, his eyes locked onto the pins with a laser focus that made the hairs on the back of Eddie's neck stand up. Eddie had played against countless great bowlers before, but he had never felt a presence like this. It was like standing next to a human storm, the calm before the explosion. Jordon took a deep breath, stepped forward, rolled the ball. The shot was clean, perfect. The ball hugged the oil pattern like it was magnetized to the lane, gliding toward the pocket with surgical precision. It curved in, kissed the pins at the exact right angle, and boom. Strike. The alley erupted. People jumped out of their seats. Oakley nearly spilled his drink as he clapped his hands. The sound of 10 pins collapsing in perfect unison echoed through the building, a sound that now felt inevitable. Jordon didn't react much, he just nodded, already locked in for the next shot. 2 more to go. The crowd grew even louder, their collective heartbeat matching the intensity of an NBA Finals Game 7. More people had crowded into the venue, some standing on tables just to get a glimpse of what might be the greatest moment in Westwood Lane's history. Jordon picked up his next ball, took his stance, rolled again. Strike. The roof nearly came off the building. The walls shook from the sheer force of the cheers. People were screaming, hugging, running back and forth in disbelief. Michael Jordon was 1 shot away from doing the unthinkable. Eddie, still standing nearby, had his arms crossed, shaking his head with an incredulous grin. He had seen some insane games before, but this was different. "This ain't real," he mumbled, half laughing. "It just ain't real." Jordon turned back to the pins. The final frame. The final shot. He inhaled deeply, his mind filtering out the noise, the flashing phone cameras, the electricity in the air. In his head, it was just him and the lane, like taking the final shot in a championship game. He took his steps, released the ball, and everything slowed down. The ball rolled pure, clean, perfect. The spin was immaculate. The curve was precise. It was a shot that looked like it had been scripted in the heavens. It neared the pocket. The angle was flawless. Fresh. 10 pins down. Perfect game. The crowd exploded into absolute chaos. People jumped over chairs. Phones dropped to the floor. A few folks straight up fell to their knees like they had just witnessed a miracle. Michael Jordan had bowled a 300. Eddie's jaw was on the floor. He stared at the fallen pins, then at Jordan, then back at the scoreboard, blinking in disbelief. The digital numbers on the screen had one final update. Michael Jordan, 300. It was real. It actually happened. Oakley was shouting at the top of his lungs, running toward Jordan like he had just won his 7th NBA championship. The entire alley was shaking. Jordan, cool as ever. He turned, cracked a grin, and simply nodded before looking at Eddie. That good enough for you? Eddie shook his head, still stunned, before bursting into laughter. He extended his hand. Man, you are something else. They shook hands as the crowd kept losing their minds. People rushed forward, begging for autographs, photos, anything. Jordan had just done what no one believed was possible. A basketball legend had just become a bowling legend. The moment was so surreal that for a brief second, it felt like the entire world had paused inside Westwood Lanes. The scoreboard flickered, locking in the numbers that had just rewritten history. Michael Jordan, 300. The perfect game. Then, in an instant, reality snapped back, and the bowling alley erupted into pure, uncontrollable madness. People screamed, jumped out of their seats, and threw their hands in the air. The walls shook as if an earthquake had just struck, and the collective noise level reached a deafening roar. It was the kind of reaction you'd expect after a buzzer beater in the NBA Finals, but instead of a basketball court, it was a bowling alley. Phones were out everywhere, people filming from every angle, knowing they had just witnessed something legendary. Even those who had never watched a full bowling game in their lives were screaming like die-hard fans. Michael Jordan, the man who had dominated the NBA for over a decade, had just conquered a completely different sport. And he had done it flawlessly. Oakley was already halfway down the lane, losing his mind. He shoved Jordan in the shoulder, laughing uncontrollably. Man, get outta here. A perfect 300. Bro, what the hell just happened? Jordan, still cool as ever, wiped his hands with a towel and gave a small grin. Guess I got the hang of it. The humility in his voice only made the crowd go even crazier. A group of stunned bowlers sat in their chairs, shaking their heads in complete disbelief. They had spent years, some their entire lives, chasing a perfect 300, and Jordan had just walked in and done it in one night. Eddie, Strike King Wilson, still standing near the ball return, let out a breath he didn't even realize he had been holding. He chuckled, hands on his hips, shaking his head. Man, I swear to God, I've seen some crazy things in my life, but this might be the wildest. He extended his hand toward Jordan, still grinning. I bow to the new king. Jordan smirked and shook his hand. Nah, man. This is your house. I'm just visiting. The crowd roared again. More people rushed forward, cameras flashing, and fans pushing closer, desperate for autographs. A young kid, probably no older than 10, squeezed through the chaos, holding out a bowling pin. Mr. Jordan, can you sign this? Jordan looked down, took the pin, and without hesitation, signed it. The boy held it close to his chest like it was a priceless artifact. Thank you, sir. A woman from the crowd yelled out, MJ, you ever gonna take this up professionally? Jordan chuckled, rubbing his chin. Maybe in my next life. The entire alley erupted in laughter. The media storm begins. As the celebration continued, a young reporter from a local sports network, who had been casually grabbing a drink at the alley's bar when the chaos began, realized he had just stumbled into the story of the year. He grabbed his phone, immediately dialing his editor. Boss, you're not gonna believe this. Michael Jordan just bowled a perfect 300. His editor, thinking it was a joke, laughed. Yeah, and I just won the lottery. Go cover a real story. I'm serious. There are literally hundreds of people in here losing their minds. The entire alley is going nuts. Dude, this is about to go viral. The moment the words Michael Jordan and perfect 300 were uttered in the same sentence, the news spread like wildfire. Within minutes, sports networks started picking up the whispers. Within an hour, the clips of Jordan's final strike had already started making their way onto social media. By the time Jordan finally left the bowling alley, escorted through a crowd of cheering fans, the internet was already ablaze. #Jordan300 began trending worldwide. Every major sports outlet, ESPN, Bleacher Report, Sports Illustrated, had one question plastered across their headlines. Did Michael Jordan just master bowling in a single night? The footage of his final 3 strikes was played on repeat, analyzed like game-winning shots in the NBA Finals. Slow-motion replays, breakdowns of his technique, reactions from professional bowlers who couldn't believe their eyes. It was everywhere. Some fans were jokingly calling for a bowling career. Jordan retired from basketball, retired from baseball. Is bowling next? Other pro athletes, from different sports, reacted in shock. NFL star Patrick Mahomes tweeted, "Bro, Jordan really rolled a perfect game? I can't even break 150 loudly crying face." PBA, Professional Bowlers Association, legend Pete Weber commented, "I'm officially done. MJ just made us all look bad." Even celebrities weighed in. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, first basketball, then baseball, now bowling. Somebody stop this man before he starts wrestling next. The legend of Michael Jordan had already been solidified in basketball history, but now a new chapter had been added to his mythology. And as for Jordan, he wasn't even on his phone. He sat relaxed in the back seat of his car, looking out the window as Oakley scrolled through the explosion of notifications. "You see this?" Oakley laughed, showing him his phone. "You just shut down the internet, man." Jordan just smirked, shaking his head. "It was just a game, Oak." Oakley scoffed. "Nah, man. That was history." And deep down, Jordan knew it. The day after Michael Jordan's perfect 300 game, the world was still reeling from the unprecedented feat. The media coverage of his flawless performance continued to dominate sports networks, social media, and news outlets across the globe. Jordan, the icon who had already conquered basketball, had now seemingly mastered another sport in a matter of hours. The viral moments from Westwood Lanes were now cemented in history, and fans, journalists, and athletes alike were scrambling to understand what they had just witnessed. The moment Jordan walked off the lanes, he had already become more than just a celebrity bowling in a local alley. He was a worldwide phenomenon. His performance wasn't just about a perfect score, it was about what it represented. Jordan, already considered the greatest basketball player to ever live, had proven something bigger, that the relentless pursuit of perfection could transcend any sport. It wasn't just his skill, it was his mindset, his competitive spirit, and his drive that shone through the most. The rise of the bowling goat. On social media, hashtags like #BowlingGoat and #Jordan300 flooded timelines, alongside photos of his final strike captured in slow motion. Clips of the bowling alley's eruption, with the crowd's cheers and gasps, became instant classics. People from all walks of life shared their shock and admiration for Jordan's ability to adapt to a sport so foreign to him and dominate it with the precision he was known for on the basketball court. Basketball fans, always loyal, couldn't get enough of the comparison between Jordan's ability to perform in the clutch on the court and his newfound talent in bowling. Sports analysts began discussing how his work ethic and attention to detail, which had made him a basketball legend, had seamlessly transferred to the world of bowling. In a viral interview the next day, Jordan, never one for fanfare or unnecessary hype, was asked how he felt about his perfect game. He gave a small, humble grin and shrugged. "It was just about focusing on the fundamentals, like always. I think I've been around competition long enough to know that when you're locked in, you can do anything." The bowling community reacts. Back at Westwood Lanes, the staff and bowlers who had witnessed the historic event were still buzzing. Chuck Daniels, the alley manager, became something of a local legend himself. I'll never forget that night. To see a guy like Michael Jordan step up and not just participate but own the game, it was mind-blowing. The workers were all still talking about it. Jordan's ease with the ball, the focus in his eyes, how he adjusted each time he missed. Some had seen the greatness in him before it was even confirmed. Bowling pros who had been watching closely were equally stunned. Many knew that achieving a perfect game was a rarity, even among the most experienced players. To see someone like Jordan, a rookie bowler, do it so effortlessly was almost unbelievable. Eddie "Strike King" Wilson, who had lost the challenge to Jordan, was still reeling from the defeat. A few days after the game, he was interviewed by local sports reporters. "It still doesn't feel real. I've been bowling for over 20 years and I've never seen anything like that. He didn't just bowl, he owned it. I can't even say he was lucky. No, that was skill. The dude is a natural." Eddie went on to say how Jordan had proven that anything was possible with the right mindset. "If you told me a week ago that Michael Jordan would walk into my alley and bowl a perfect game, I would have said you were crazy. But now, hell, I'm still in awe." The Professional Bowlers Association, PBA, also had a field day with the event, as bowlers from all over started talking about it in interviews. PBA star Jason Belmonte commented, "I've bowled for years, and I've seen guys come close to 300, but I've never seen someone walking like that, get their first strike and keep going. I don't care what sport it is, what MJ did was extraordinary." The PBA's website saw a massive spike in views as the public wanted to know more about bowling's newest superstar. A new chapter in Jordan's legacy. The inevitable questions started to emerge. Could Michael Jordan make a real career out of bowling? And is he the new bowling GOAT? While Jordan himself brushed the questions aside with a smile, he did admit that his interest had been piqued. "I never really thought about it. But I guess if I wanted to do something with it, I could. But I'll leave the real bowling to the pros," Jordan said in an interview with ESPN. Still, fans couldn't help but wonder, could he go pro? The thought alone sparked a wave of speculation. What if Jordan took this as seriously as basketball? The most impressive aspect of Jordan's perfect game wasn't just the 300 score. It was the fact that he had no formal training, no prior experience, and yet was able to adapt and dominate. His ability to lock in and perform at such a high level was a testament to his mentality, one that had led him to greatness in every sport he pursued. In interviews, fans and analysts alike praised him for his dedication and mental toughness, which had clearly translated to bowling with masterful precision. Media attention and global impact. As the days passed, the story continued to go viral. TV spots, internet articles, and sports talk shows were flooded with the subject of Jordan's perfect game. News anchors all over the world would mention his 300 with excitement, and memes about Jordan's second career flooded social media. Global news outlets, from Europe to Asia, picked up the story, marveling at how a sports icon had seemingly defied logic by mastering something so new. Fans in Australia and Europe began talking about taking up bowling, just to emulate Jordan's success. This was more than just a perfect game. It was a phenomenon that had inspired people to take a shot at something new, something they never thought possible. The aftermath in the alley. The day after the game, Westwood Lanes had a line of people wrapped around the block, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legend's lane. Everyone in the community had stories to tell, all of them now claiming to have been there the night Jordan made history. Some had gotten autographs, others had pictures with Jordan himself. The alley itself became a tourist attraction, drawing fans from all parts of the country. For Jordan, though, it was just another story. He had already written his chapter in basketball history, and now, with his perfect game, he had written a new one in bowling history. The people who were there would always remember where they were when they saw Michael Jordan roll a perfect 300. And the bowling alley? It would forever be known as the place where MJ showed the world that greatness knows no limits.